With the Philippines also sitting along the Pacific Ring of Fire, how vulnerable are we to a similar disaster? To answer that and more, we have on the show geologist and disaster risk reduction expert Mahar Lagmay joining us via Zoom. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. Morning, Gretchen.
Okay, good morning. Every time, we talk, naalala ko lang, no? Laging may sakuna. Pero, these discussions have to be made. And we are seeing one of the biggest earthquakes in recent history in Myanmar being described as with words such as entire communities flattened, buildings toppled over, children and families with no homes to return to. Help us understand the extent and the gravity of the earthquake that happened over in Myanmar.
Yes, it's probably the biggest in terms of the number of casualties. But there have been bigger earthquakes that have happened elsewhere in the world. So the magnitude 7.7 earthquake that happened in Myanmar uh, is a shallow earthquake, or was a shallow earthquake, 10 kilometers depth. And when an earthquake of such magnitude happens and it's shallow and it's near a populated area, like for example in Mandalay, there's going to be a lot of casualties that will ensue. And the earthquake that happened actually reached even Bangkok. The long wavelengths of the earthquake made the high-rise buildings of Thailand to sway.
And,
And even some buildings
oo.
collapsed, by the way, in Bangkok.
Kumbaga parang nandito sa kumare pagka drenowing natin nandito sa taas yung earthquake na yon kaya mas apektado yung nasa taas na structures. Is that correct? Are we getting that correct? Pag malalim, ano yung magiging effect nun sa movement ng
Okay.
tectonic plates?
So kapag yung earthquake nangyari, it releases energy. And the energy that is released is several times more powerful than releasing the energy of an atomic bomb. No? So if it happens underneath the surface of the Earth, syempre magpo-propagate yung energy na yon in the form of seismic waves. Now, the nearer the source of that earthquake to a populated center, the more damaging it is. That means that if the earthquake, let's say, happened at a depth of about 400 kilometers, so malayo yun, nagdi-dissipate. If it's near the populated area, near the surface, like what happened in Myanmar, magnitude 7.7 at a depth of 10 kilometers, the source of the energy is quite near. Kumbaga nagpaputok ka ng bomba, mas malapit ka, mas tatamaan ka. Di ba? Ganun lang yon. So it was a shallow earthquake near a populated center, and it devastated a lot of communities, destroyed a lot of buildings in Myanmar. Now, what happened dun sa earthquake na yon? There were some frequencies, no, some waves that traveled very far. Ito yung mga long wavelength na nire-release ng earthquake, and it traveled all the way to Bangkok, about 1,000 kilometers away. Normally mahina na dapat yun kasi parang 1,000 kilometers ang Philippines from Apari to Davao is probably about 1,200 kilometers. So medyo malayo na yon. Dapat kung nagka-earthquake kunyari sa Davao, hindi na mararamdaman masyado sa Manila. But this was quite unusual na kahit 1,000 kilometers away yung source ng earthquake, meron pa rin nangyaring devastation sa Bangkok. And it's because of the traveling of the long wavelengths na umabot hanggang Thailand.
Well, given Myanmar's location and tectonic setup, how does its earthquake risk compare to the Philippines?
Well, meron kasing I sent you some slides, by the way, if you can show it. But if not, that's fine, no? Yung India kasi has been moving northwards and colliding with Asia. It has been happening throughout Earth's history over millions of years, and because it's colliding, it developed the mountain ranges, including the Himalayas. The continued push of India and collision with Asia has generated stresses and they get released along faults. Yung Sagaing Fault, which is the fault responsible for the earthquake, continues to move, no? And when it moved, it released that energy. In the Philippines, we also have numerous faults like the Sagaing Fault. Uh, the biggest one, for example, is the Philippine Fault, which is about 1,200 kilometers long. And we have a lot of other faults. Similar to Sagaing, when these faults move, they release earthquakes. They release energy in the form of earthquakes. No, pagka nangyari yon and these earthquakes have ground shaking that can affect buildings when a lot of buildings collapse, especially in populated areas, then the devastation can be bad, really, really bad. Sa Metro Manila, we're waiting for the big one. Sinasabi nila that in the first few minutes, 35,000 people will die. Maybe that has increased already because that's an old study. But in terms of movement, the presence of faults, yung Myanmar has that Sagaing Fault, which is one of the most dangerous faults in the world. And we have faults here in the country that are also considered as extremely dangerous faults that when they move, they can cause a lot of damage.
Okay, so yung nangyari sa Myanmar, hindi pa yan yung parang big one nila. Am I getting that correct? I mean, because it is a shallow earthquake. And also, pangalawa, oo, go ahead, go ahead.
Yung Sagaing Fault since 1906 has moved 10 times na more than magnitude 6.5. No? Pag sinabi naman na big one, ibig sabihin nun, meron siyang energy na marirelease kapag gumalaw yung fault. And then when it's near a populated area, and it can cause a lot of damage, and if people are vulnerable and not prepared, it can cause a lot of deaths, no? Yun naman talaga ang essence nung ibig sabihin ng big one, that there's the presence of a fault that has this potential to create damage in a populated. That's the essence of calling a fault and an event, no, that is generated by movement of that fault, creating an earthquake that is extremely damaging.
Wait, could it be also that Myanmar's building code doesn't hold up to par? That's why it had this extensive damage?
I haven't read the building code of Myanmar, no? But I'm suspecting na ayun nga, perhaps if the building code was very good, no, up to par with international standards, it could have minimized the number of collapsed buildings and deaths. But the fault was really near the populated area. The rupture was 200 kilometers long, if I'm not mistaken, from what I read. There were a lot of aftershocks. It was shallow, and magnitude 7.7 is quite a large earthquake, no, releasing a lot of energy. So we would expect a lot of damage there in the area of especially Mandalay in that area. Well, that is something that we have to live with and have to prepare for.
Well, we hope the rescue efforts will be quick because as we are seeing in the news, the window seems to be closing. Medyo there are people buried underneath the rubble. But relating that to the Philippines, based on what you're seeing, how prepared are we? I mean, we've been talking about this year after year. Pag may nangyayaring earthquake, here in the Philippines or abroad, laging na bring up the big one. Are people adjusting already? Have we adjusted our own standards?
Well, compared to 10 years ago or maybe 2 decades ago, nakikita ko na talaga naman nagpe-prepare tayo, and the government is really putting a lot of effort in prevention and mitigation as well as preparedness. There are updates to the implementing rules and regulations of the building code. And it's important that if we follow strictly the building code, we might be able to reduce the damage or the casualties from earthquakes that threaten us constantly. Tuloy-tuloy lang, no? We are doing more preparedness measures, but again, the more effort that we put into it, the better our chances to survive.
Yung photos na pinadala nyo, mukhang ito nahugot na namin, ano? I mean, ito yung mga mapa na sinasabi mo. Let's play it. We have we are seeing the geography of Myanmar. Mukhang
Ano ba? I still can't see. There you go. Okay.
hindi pa ayan, yan. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. That image was from Myanmar. No. What you're seeing here is the area of Mandalay where the epicenter is located. No. Nakikita niyo yung yellow, and you can see the red dots on the left panel. That's the series of earthquakes. The big circle is the main earthquake, followed by several aftershocks. And daming aftershocks. And you can see that it's very near a populated area. And the fact that it was shallow means that the source or the hypocenter, the source of the energy was very near. Now, I was talking about India colliding with China. You can see the movement of India through time several million years ago. And I think about 10 million years ago, it collided and it formed the mountain ranges, including the Himalayas. No? That's where the mountain range is. And you can see that there's a red line there showing the collision area between India and China, going roughly east-west and one going north-south through Myanmar. And you can see a circle there, which is the epicenter, which is close to the Sagaing Fault. And the movement of the Sagaing Fault was because of the collision of India and Eurasia. Now, throughout several millions of years, or hundreds of years even, because of the movement, stress is being accumulated, and that stress needs to be released. And when it's released, it's in the form of what we call as an earthquake. The energy is very, very large. It's equivalent to the detonation of several Hiroshima atomic bombs.
Okay, based on what you're seeing here in the Philippines and the recent seismic activity, do you see any risk of a major earthquake hitting the Philippines soon?
We're under constant threat from earthquakes. We should prepare. Volks is saying that the Marikina Valley Fault has been moving several times for the past hundreds of years, and we are to expect movement soon. No? If the Marikina Valley Fault or the Valley Fault system moves, then Metro Manila is under threat because the energy or the magnitude of the earthquake that is expected is magnitude 7.2. That's quite large, and if it's going to be shallow, and if it's going to be near Metro Manila, then we have to really prepare, and that is what we call as the big one. Ang payo ko lang ay sana sundin yung building code kasi the building code can mitigate the damage from that expected earthquake. And there are a lot of other faults that can move. These faults, no matter how far, based on the experience of what happened dito sa Myanmar affecting Thailand, no? Even if it's 1,000 kilometers away yung source ng earthquake, that means that we have to prepare for faults other than the Valley Fault system or the Marikina Valley Fault system.
If you are an individual, I mean, it does seem that this is over your head. I mean, talking about building codes, talking about looking into that. Paano kaya, kung ako ay nakatira sa lumang condominium, what can I do? Should I bring it up with management to check that out? Parang, it does leave me a little bit helpless if it comes down to building codes. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, Normally, meron naman mga permits yung mga buildings from each city sa Metro Manila, no? And that is monitored by the Office of the Building Official. Look for the permits if they have the permits on a yearly basis, and they should be complying with the building code, no? So mino-monitor naman yan. Yung building code is supervised by the DPWH and is monitored by the LGU through the Office of the Building Official. So please look for those permits and look for the assessment of each building, and if it needs retrofitting, then suggest that it be retrofitted according to building standards.
The big one involves the Marikina fault, right? I mean, the farther that I go from that, is it always safer? Puntahan din natin yung ano, because you recently launched a new app for Project NOAA. I mean, if I were looking for a home to move into, do you advise me to go farther? Does it really matter if it's the big one?
Okay, meron tinatawag na magnitude and intensity, Gretchen, no? Magnitude is the energy at source. Okay? Yung intensity naman is what is felt after the earthquake, no? Or during the earthquake. So parang ilaw lang 'yan. It's like the bulb, no? Meron tayong 100 watts, meron tayong 200 watts, meron tayong 50 watts. Yun yung katumbas ng energy. The farther you go away from the bulb, no, the lit bulb, the less the intensity is. Okay. So, mas malayo ka doon sa source nung possible source nung earthquake, mas mahina ang mas mararamdaman mo. But within Metro Manila, nakikita ko doon sa mga studies na even if you're within mas malayo ka, for example 1.5 or more kilometers from the Valley Fault system, yung effects nun in terms of intensity would be the same kung nanggaling yung earthquake sa Marikina Fault, no? Pag within Quezon City. Pero of course merong variations depende kung ano yung nasa ilalim, if it's adobe or if it's loose sand and gravel. Like for example, if you're living in near the coastal areas of Manila. So doon nagkakaiba-iba, no? Yun ang importanteng malaman. But again, it all boils down to a structure na kapag tinayo, dapat wala on top of the fault. And two, it can withstand ground shaking. And yung pag-withstand ng ground shaking na yon is actually the concern of the building code. So if you follow the building code, you have better chances of that building not collapsing.
Okay, you have a new app, as I mentioned. What can we see there in the new Project NOAA app?
Pangbaha yun.
Pangbaha yun, hindi yung pang-earthquake.
It's not for earthquake, pangbaha yun. But anyway,
okay.
we released the NOAA app for iOS. You can download it for free. You can use it for your iPhone or iPad or MacBook. We released that also yung Android version a month ago. So pwede nyo na. The flood maps are there. You can see other features. It can be useful in saving your loved ones' lives, even your life, if you love yourself.
Well, as we are constantly facing disaster, that will be tremendous help. Pero sana, susunod pating earthquake, meron na din para isang app lang pupuntahan, diba? Okay,
although we're doing something about earthquakes, we've been creating shake tables, and we're looking also at seismic building instrumentation. Meron kasing requirements sa building code na kailangan merong mga seismometers or accelerographs sa buildings. We've been looking at the data that has been collected over a decade. And mukhang merong magagandang mga naiintindihan natin na bago, no? Yung response ng buildings sa mga earthquakes, particularly the Batangas earthquake, the Zambales earthquake, the Abra earthquake. And it's really going to be used to improve the building code.
Alright, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for explaining things to us and giving us the context of the Myanmar earthquake that just hit. Maraming salamat. We have Dr. Mahar Lagmay on the show.